here. They are taking on this darker color as a way to stand out to those predators. Again, to let them know they'll take them on. It's a little bit of an intimidation factor. But this is going to draw in more heat, taking a lot of energy to cool off their bodies. So they don't really have a thick coat. You're seeing more so their skin tone. And they also have really big ears, which will act just like elephant ears. If you didn't know, animals with bigger ears, that's going to be a way for them to cool down. What happens is the blood circulates through that skin, it cools it down, and then sends that cooled blood through their bodies. Also important to note that the larger in size you are, the more energy it takes to cool down your body. So you need those little trade-offs. You need those adaptations to help you out, to keep you cool, because the more energy you're wasting or using up, that means the less energy you have to find food or search for a mate. Very important thing. You can contrast their dark coloration to these adorable animals coming up on your passenger side. They're all collected underneath these shaggy trees right in the center here. These are the critically endangered Somali wild ass. There is thought to be less than 300 individuals left on this planet, so we are very lucky to have a herd of them here at the safari park. They too have follow me marks like the Ellipson waterbuck, except theirs are in the form of little zebra tooth socks. This is obviously going to be helpful to allow them to follow along with each other, but how it works for this species is they are grazers. Their heads are going to be low to the ground eating the grasses. So they're able to keep track of each other just by glancing up and looking for the stripes on their friend next to them. We're going to be leaving South Africa just for a little bit. We'll come back in a little bit later on in our tour, but it's now time to head into Central Africa, where we have quite a variation of species. Keeping your eyes out on the driver's side is going to give you the best potential to see as many of those species as possible. If you pull on your really good eyes and look over the tops of these shade structures, there's a rock formation next to a big green shady tree. You might be seeing the male black rhino out there. If you're having a hard time, he's been a little bit more active this morning, so we might see him in view again later on. He does also have a female counterpart who lives out here. This morning they were getting a little space from one another. What's that saying? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah, they need a little break from each other once in a while, because most of the time out here, they're going to be taking some nice long romantic strolls with one another. We're all very hopeful that we're going to have some success and maybe have a couple baby black rhinos running around in the future. Also out on your driver's side, at the largest hilltop, you can see some of the male herd of roan antelope. They're going to have threat masks on their faces and horns on their heads, because this species is really good at defending territory. You'll see the males and females alike sparring for the best spot. In a moment here, we'll be coming to a stop on the bridge. It provides one of my favorite views in the park. The only thing to note is that the breeze has picked up quite a bit today, so it might knock off your hat or blow that map out of your hand, so make sure you're hanging on to them. Before I get to the view I was going to mention, I just talked about the roan antelope and their sparring. You can see the females on your passenger side doing just that. Again, it's pretty frequent that this happens, but we got to take advantage when we see it in action. So they're going to be right behind that island. They are going to be telling each other who gets that best spot when it comes to territory. And since we're looking off to our passenger side here, I'll mention that this is our forest habitat. So many of the animals over here are going to have a more rusty coloration to their coats, because that's going to help them blend into this more green environment. You currently have a female Sitatunga on that island. You also have two down in the little stream leading up to the rock bridge. So whatever you can see easier, those are all Sitatunga. They're going to have this really rusty red coat and white vertical stripes. Those stripes are their camouflage. It's going to help break up their outlines by mimicking the sunbeam's light coming through the leaves of the trees. Alright, but I promised a great view, so look out that driver's side now. You can see all the way down to the lagoon where we first started our tour. In this African loop, we could fit the entire San Diego Zoo. So there's a lot of room for these animals to roam and mingle with one another. Also on your driver's side, in the body of water below, you can see a younger male Sitatunga Rajunga. Since he's not full grown, he doesn't look as drastically different from the females as some of the full grown males will. But when he is full grown, he's going to have a really nice set of horns grown in on his head, and he'll be a much more brown rusty coloration rather than that red rusty coloration. When you have males and females of the same species, but they look differently, that is called sexual dimorphism. What it means is usually that the males are the ones wanting to look fancy for the females, knowing all too well they may attract a predator instead of a mate. I do want to make sure I'm not leaving out any of my plant lovers on board, so I want to mention that this entire passenger side is part of our Southwest Conservation Hub, which includes coastal sage scrub. Coastal sage scrub is an endangered habitat. There's thought to be less than 15% in the entire world. Animals like the burrowing owl, as well as the California mule deer, they're going to call coastal sage scrub home. Here at the safari park, we have over 1,800 acres, and about half of it is dedicated to the conservation of plants. Because without plants, we don't have food and shelter for all these wonderful animals. After we pass these big trees on our driver's side, you're going to have some great views down below. If you pull on your really good eyes and look towards the back of the tram, you can see the male black rhino just now laying down to take a little snooze. If you look for that black rock formation growing into the hillside, he's on the right hand side of that by those two trees. If you can't see him, that's okay. He's getting ready for his nap time anyway. And instead, you can take notice of those beautiful or handsome fellas down below, those grubby zebra males. Many of them hanging out in the shades of trees, but a couple also in view on the sandy roadway. There's a total of 5 grubby zebras out here, and this species of zebra is the largest. They also have the most narrow striping pattern. And stripes on zebras are their camouflage. They won't be blending into their habitats, but rather into one another. When a predator is near, they all start running in different directions, which makes it really difficult for that predator to pick out just one of them. Did anyone notice the antelope right below them? Raise your hands. Couple of us? Awesome. So where those zebras are, on the other side of the sandy roadway, there's a collection of rocks and this really massive dark green tree. Underneath that tree are the very elusive greater kudu. These are a forest antelope. So if you can get a good view on their ears, look at how Mickey Mouse-like they are. Very large ears. That's going to be helpful because when you live in a forest habitat, trees are blocking your view of predators. So you want to have really good hearing to listen out for them instead. While we're moving down the hillside, there are some trees to keep your eyes peeled for, and those are the trees with taco-shaped leaves, mostly found off to your passenger side. This plant is the laurel sumac, and it's native to California. We don't typically get a lot of rainfall here, so this plant has adapted to use those taco-shaped leaves to collect the morning dew. It then trickles it down into its root system and is able to stay green all year long. Since we're now entered back into South Africa, you're going to notice some familiar faces. But down below on our driver's side are my favorite antelope, these gray-coated antelope called the gemsbok. They have these really awesome facial markings, those threat masks, and long, slender horns on their heads to make them look intimidating. They live in areas where resources are very scarce, and they do not want to share with others. So they're going to try to deter them from coming in and taking them over. You can see those giraffes have pretty much all made their way towards those trees. We're going to try to get any of those low-lying leaves. They act like they're not fed all kinds of food, so sometimes you'll even find them reaching over and munching on the grasses or plants that grow over the sides of the walls. Once in a while, it's pretty funny to watch. We're going to continue just a little bit further forward because last time we came around, we saw 2 different species hanging out at the top of this hillside. Looks like for sure one of them are still up here, and they're going to be coming up here in just a moment. So look out that driver's side, and you're going to be seeing the very small springbok. These antelope get their name from this behavior they do called pronking, where they spring up into the air to show off their fitness. That could be to attract a mate or to deter a predator. It's showing off that either I'm going to be really hard to catch if you're a predator, or I'm going to be the most fit individual. You want to have little ones with me because they're more likely to survive. Speaking of little ones, look out on your driver's side. We have 4 baby Patterson's elands. I will come to a stop because I know that little fence line kind of blocks right where they're lying. But there are 4 right up next to Mama Bear there, keeping a watchful eye over her friends' babies as well. These little ones are about a month old, but man, they are growing like little weeds. The Patterson's eland are going to be one of the larger species out here, and they are very well adapted to move around into many different environments. For example, they have these long spiral horns on their heads, which they can use to pull down branches of trees if they need extra food options. And instead of big ears to help them cool down, if you can get a look at the base of their necks, they have this extra skin fold called a dewlap. This is their adaptation to keep cool. So similar to how I mentioned elephant ears are Cape buffalo ears. Instead of big ears, they have this extra little flap of skin. Before we head into East Africa, I do want to mention that we are coming back around to that lagoon. It's important to note that we use reclaimed water to fill this lagoon, as well as for the irrigation of all the plants you see around us. We can help to conserve water at home by turning off the faucet while we brush our teeth. We all can play a small little role to help ensure that there's water on this planet for the future generations to come. Since we started up this hillside with some history on the park, there's a story I like to share about our passenger side. This hilltop is called Amani Point, and it was Dr. Schroeder's favorite spot to bring people. He knew how important it would be for animals to have lots of room to roam. So he would bring people here to share that vision and show off the expansive landscape. Animals like the southern white rhino really benefit from this. They previously had a difficult time with reproduction while in zoo settings. Once we brought them here, gave them all this space, and allowed them to live in social groups, we found that they've been extremely successful. We've had over 100 southern white rhino babies born here. They also just announced that one of the females is pregnant. This is all very exciting news. The unfortunate thing, or the important thing to take away, is that many rhino species are still endangered. That's due to poaching for their horns. There's a misconception that rhino horn can be used for medicinal properties or purposes, when in reality, their horns are made up of the same protein that make up our hair and our fingernails. It's called keratin, and it's important we share that with others so we can keep these awesome animals around. When the safari park first opened in the 1970s, population sizes of the southern white rhinos was thought to be down into the hundreds, whereas now it's upwards of about 22,000. So we know those conservation efforts are paying off. It's just a constant issue we need to combat. There's a lot of movement out here in East Africa on your passenger side. The birds down by the grassy stream are going to be the East African crowned cranes. These birds will mate for life. I see some movement though on our driver's side. Bear with me here, but where that fallen down tree is, I see a cheetah moving in the grasses. I haven't seen them the last couple days, so definitely wanted to take a moment to enjoy that beautiful view of this amazing cat. Also, you can take a moment when you exit the tram, you can walk over to the cheetah habitat here. It's going to be out the exit to the left. So if you're interested in doing that, you can. But back over to our passenger side, that's where we're going to be focusing the rest of the time here. I mentioned those birds. There's also a lot of antelope out here, a lot, because there's 60 acres of space. So there's a lot of room for these antelope, as well as the very large animals who live out here, like the giraffes and rhinos. So these animals are going to constantly migrate and mingle with each other. There's a lot of hillsides to hang out on, shady areas, and a big congregating area of the watering hole. As we move forward here, I will come to a stop because little baby giraffe is out there, and oh boy is she cute. You can spot her off to your passenger side. She is going to be near the base of the hill. There's a little sandy roadway running up the hillside. She is to the right of it. Looks like she's munching on some leaves. Little Miss Nuru is about 4 months old. And believe it or not, baby giraffes are typically born at about 6 feet tall. If your mom is 18 feet tall, it's going to be very important that you can reach up and nurse from her, getting all those necessary nutrients. As we begin to round the bend, the watering hole is the next area. You're going to have this silvery gray wildebeest, who you may be familiar with. Up on a hillside behind them, you have some sparring with 2 male Nile lechwe. Ooh, I don't see that often. You also have some glimpses of the southern white rhinos. It looks like they're waking up from their morning snooze. So look out this passenger side. Where we pass by gate labeled 1, you'll see those sleeping boulders starting to stir a little bit. If you want some additional views looking into this field, there are a couple areas you can head to, and I'm happy to give you some directions to those spots if you'd like. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. By entering one of our 2 front doors here at the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, you are an ally for wildlife. Every dollar you spend here today goes directly back in to caring for all these wonderful animals. Without your support, we would not be able to continue all of our conservation efforts around the world. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed your tour of Africa and that you were able to learn a little bit about the animals we saw. Maybe you got an idea of why they have certain coat colors or horns on their heads. If you do have questions for me, again, I'm Savannah. I'll be available for you to chat with at the dock at Tram Station. Looks like they have a few more friends boarding the tram in front of us, so we're just going to hang off to the side for a moment. But good news for you is there's some views of the beautiful Roland Nyala off to your driver's side. This is one of those ideal forest antelope, and this is another species where they're sexually dimorphic. Again, males and females don't look alike. Currently in your view on that driver's side are all females, so they're going to have that rusty coloration. The males are going to be this really dark brownish gray. They're going to have a really big set of horns on their heads, and their white vertical stripes become not so visible. The reason there's not a male in there right now is, one, right before COVID, we had a male that was just introduced into the habitat with these ladies, and during COVID, he was very successful in producing offspring. There were a lot of little ones running around, so he got to go hang out with another herd elsewhere, and all the males we do have here are in a different habitat because many of them are related to the females here. So again, that's going to go back to that species survival plan and maintaining genetic diversity. What we talked about earlier, making sure we know who all the fathers and mothers of any of the offspring are. Since we're going to be hanging out for just another moment, I just want to remind everyone to confirm you have all your belongings together. If you brought any trash on board, I'm going to ask you a big favor. Please make sure it makes its way into a trash or recycling bin. We would greatly appreciate that. Did anyone make their way to elephants today? Still pretty early in the day, but if you have yet to do so, a couple of my friends, yay! If you have yet to do so, the elephants are my absolute favorite. The 2 little ones out there are now about 3 years old, but oh boy, are they fun to watch. They are only a month apart in age, so they always have lots of energy, usually playing with one another. It's really fun to watch. Looks like it's our turn to pull on into the station, so we're going to do so. Once we come to our full and complete stop, I'm going to ask that you exit on your passenger side. That's the right-hand side of the vehicle only, please, back towards the humans. You'll reach on the outside of your doors and press the black mouse forward. You'll give that door a little bit of a nudge, and it'll open up for you. Thank you again for coming out today. It really does mean a lot. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your visit here at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, and that you come to see us again very soon. Thanks, folks.